On this week's show, the Georgia Southern baseball and softball teams with good weekends will take you out to Eagle Field to see how the softball team did as they were hosting Coastal Carolina, and the baseball team with a midweek game against Kennesaw. All that and more as we welcome you inside the Eagles Nest. Welcome inside the Eagles Nest. I'm your host, Josh Aubrey, being joined by Mike Anthony, sports editor and Georgia Southern beat writer for the Statesboro Herald. And Mike, the Georgia Southern baseball team have been doing pretty well in the conference, winning 2 out of 3 series the past few weeks. This past week they had a real big one because it was at Troy, where they were 3rd and Troy was 4th. And if they were to have lost 2 out of 3 or gotten swept, then maybe they flip-flop instead. They win 2 out of 3 and put a little distance between them and the Trojans and the rest of the Sunbelt field right now. So a good spot for the Eagles, and they come home and knock off Kennesaw State, beating a team that they probably should have beat. Now they've got another series coming up this weekend that looks like they could, on paper, sweep, and that's Appalachian State, who's struggled all year and struggled the past few years in the Sun Belt. Your thoughts on where Georgia Southern is at this point?
Well, right now, I think Georgia Southern definitely feels like they're building a little bit of momentum. 2 out of 3 on the road at Troy. It would have been nice to get that rubber game, get the sweep, but I think they'll take 2 out of 3 on the road at any point. They put a little bit of distance between themselves and Troy, creep a little bit closer to the top of the standings with Coastal Carolina and Louisiana Lafayette splitting, actually tying the game. Personally, I think they should be docked for that. This is baseball. There's no tying in baseball. But regardless of that, the Sun Belt, still a strong conference, but no one really running away with it record-wise. The Eagles actually, when you look at the overall record, as good as anybody in the conference. So for now, the important games are on the weekend. It's nice to get the win against Kennesaw State, but they need to focus on those Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or in this case, this week because of Easter, Thursday night, Friday night, and then Saturday afternoon against a team in App State. As you mentioned, you can't assume a sweep against anybody, but if there's a team out in the Sun Belt that's ripe for picking, it would be Appalachian State.
And the good thing about Georgia Southern is they've been getting some solid pitching, even in the game that they lost on the road at Troy. They didn't pitch bad. They just didn't get the bats going in that game. So you've got to feel good about, and it looks like we've got a pretty good solid rotation right now, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, and actually some names that maybe you didn't think would be in that weekend rotation. Evan Challenger, the Friday night starter for the last 2 seasons, just 1 missed start in those 2 seasons combined. He, for the moment, is out of that role. He's been in relief. I think maybe dealing with, I don't want to say arm soreness because he's been pitching, but maybe getting a little bit of rest with that arm with some brief bullpen appearances instead of being asked to go the distance on a Friday night. But Jacob Condra-Bogan, he's done a good job settling into that Friday night role. You've got Brian Eichhorn, Chase Cohen, guys who came on strong at the end of last season. Still waiting to see him hit that peak this season, but putting forth good efforts. And then with the football spring practice winding down, you'll see Seth Schumann back in there. I know he's only a freshman, but he seems to have gotten the attention of a lot of batters around the league as a guy who can really sit down an entire order.
And you know, with the Sun Belt tournament being in Statesboro, this is a great season for the Eagles because not only have they been getting some pretty good starting pitching, but their bullpen, it looks like they've got 4 or 5 different guys that can count on to come in and get eat some innings and be able to be successful in a relief role. We were able to get out there for Tuesday's ball game at home against Kennesaw State. Let's get out and see some of those highlights. Georgia Southern in a midweek series at J.I. Clements hosting Kennesaw State. The Eagles starting the scoring. Ryan Cleveland singles into right. Stephen Curry will score. And the Eagles take a 1-0 lead. The Owls come back. David Shabu with a double into left. 2-run score. And the Owls take a 2-1 lead. Anthony Pisano in relief. With the inning-ending strikeout, one of 9 Eagle pitchers to make an appearance. In the second, bases loaded, Mitchell Golan's fly ball deep enough to score Logan Baldwin to make it 2-all. Next, Jordan Wren with the fly ball into left. This one deep enough to plate Evan McDonald from third, and it's 3-2 Georgia Southern. Still in the second, Tyler Martin will single the other way. Stephen Curry scores again to make it 4-2. Eagles playing solid defensively as well. Check out the sliding catch and right by Jordan Wren. More from the Eagles. And it's once again Stephen Curry scoring on the wild pitch. The Eagles take a 5-2 lead. They tack on 3 a little bit later, and Georgia Southern goes on for the victory in this one by a final count of 8-4. And as we mentioned, next up for the Eagles, a big 3-game series at home against Appalachian State. Well, moving on to the softball diamond, Georgia Southern, we haven't had a lot of highlights on our show, but this past weekend was a rare weekend where it was softball only at home and Georgia Southern baseball on the road. So we got some highlights of them playing Coastal Carolina, who came in with a very impressive record. Maybe not the pedigree that the baseball team has, but they're a very good team that came in, and Georgia Southern put it to them, taking 3 games and a sweep and getting them above 500 for the first time in quite a while in the conference.
A huge weekend for the Eagles softball team. Last weekend, the nationally ranked Raging Cajuns of Louisiana Lafayette in town. You knew it was going to be a tough one. You hoped that maybe they could take a game like they did last year. That wasn't the case. They got swept. All of a sudden, they're looking way up in the standings. But then, as you mentioned, a good Coastal Carolina team, they'd have been happy for a series win. Instead, they went out, they finished the job, they get the doubleheader sweep to clinch the series sweep, and now a game over 500, you start looking at getting back into the mix, back into the middle of those conference standings. And with the teams at the top in this conference, you really need to watch as the season goes on who you're going to match up with. I know it's a double elimination tournament, but in softball, in the Sun Belt, there are definitely some teams that you want to kind of avoid as long as possible.
Yeah, we see a few of those teams that year in, year out are not only vying for the Sun Belt title, but make it to the regionals and even to the World Series from the Sun Belt tournament and from the Sun Belt rather conference. All right, well, we do have some highlights from the Coastal Carolina series. Let's get out and see some of those. Game 2 Saturday in breast cancer awareness, Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina. The Eagles took game 1 8-7, and Kiera Camp in control on the mound, a complete game shutout, allowing only 3 hits. Offensively, Alicia Mann with the double. She'd go 2 for 4. This would help start a rally as she comes in to score on the perfectly placed bunt by Macy Weeks. And it's 1-0 Georgia Southern. To the third we go, 2 on, and Shelby Wilson does her job. The sacrifice advances the runners. And then with the runner on second and third, it's Mann again. This time the blast to straightaway center. It falls for a triple. 2-run score. The Eagles open up a 3-0 lead. In the fourth, 2 on for Morgan Robinson, and Morgan gets a hold of this one, up, and away. The 3-run shot would extend the Eagle lead to 6-0. Camp continuing to get the visitors to hit into outs. Mann with the play here at short. Only 1 strikeout, but she'd allow only 3 hits. Some insurance in the 6th. Michaela Freeman, the leadoff single, as she'd eventually advance to third and then come in to score here on the wild pitch. And then for the finishing touch, Mann with the grounder to short. The runners take off. This one booted, allowing Freeman to score what would prove to be the game winner as the Eagles win via the run rule in 6 by a count of 8-0. Sunday we go. The Eagles looking for the sweep. Dixie Rayleigh on the mound, and she was in command. She'd finish with 5 strikeouts. And Dixie would get plenty of offensive help. Bottom of the first, bases loaded for Macy Weeks. And she takes this one up, and away to left. The grand slam would give the Eagles a 4-0 lead after 1 inning of play. We move to the third. Coastal scratches out a run as Adriana Toro comes up with the RBI single to center. But the Eagles in command. Emily Snyder with the RBI on the fielder's choice here, plating India Davis. Plenty of support for Rayleigh, who'd finish allowing only one unearned run and 2 hits and 5 strikeouts. The Eagles complete the sweep, winning 9-1. And Mike, as the baseball team will host Appalachian State, who is one of the teams struggling in the Sun Belt Conference, the women go to App. And again, it's another opportunity playing a team that you should beat. And on paper, you may even have a chance to sweep going to their place. So hopefully the Eagles can come out victorious there on the road at Appalachian State. Well, that'll wrap things up for now. One final note, I guess, the Georgia Southern golf team with another fine outing. This one at the Gary Koch Invitational, where they finished, I believe, in 4th.
Tied for 4th. Yeah. That concludes their regular season, and now they get ready to take that trip down to Destin, compete for hopefully their second title in 3 years.
So that'll be match play, which is always a kind of neat format to be having. So good luck to the Eagles. I would think that there's a very good chance that they're already in the postseason as well as they've played, but it's always nice to be able to secure things with a victory in the Sun Belt Tournament. All right, well, that'll wrap things up for now. For Mike Anthony, I'm Josh Aubrey. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again next week.